Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily. Today, asking the question: how bad is it for the Kansas City Chiefs? How big is the trouble here, Sam? They fall to 3-4. First off, tons of credit for the Tennessee Titans. Right, they dominated this game, but we have to view this from the Chiefs' standpoint, just for this 10 minutes or so. A team that was expected to be the best team in the AFC again this year, and I think people have been chipping away, and we've been saying, it's okay, they're going to be all right, the turnovers will stop. But this game was far more than the turnovers. It was a beatdown from start to finish by the Titans. So how worried are you about the Chiefs?
For the first time, a little bit worried. I mean, we've kind of been taking the approach of, yeah, look, eventually they'll stop turning the ball over and the defense will be a little bit better than it's looked through the first few weeks of the season. And ultimately they will clean it up and they'll go on a run and they'll be right back where we expect them to be, at the top of the division, there or thereabouts. All of a sudden, though, they're now under 500 after 7 weeks of the season. And, when you start to look at the AFC, they need to kind of go on a run just to make the playoffs. Like maybe the Chargers give them a break and don't kind of run away at the top of the division, or the Raiders don't, and the winning that division becomes more attainable than we thought it was going to be. But if they don't win the division, it might take 10 wins to make the postseason in the AFC, at which point they're going to need to win 7 out of their final 10 games just to make the playoffs, to even still be in contention to go on a run once they get there. All of a sudden, the way they're playing and the schedule they have left, that's not easy.
Yeah, starting with first off, the AFC is interesting because there are no dominant teams anymore, right? It was supposed to be the Chiefs and the Bills. The Bills might be just a QB sneak away from being 6-1 and being the team that we're talking about as the team, like we were maybe last week at this time. But there's a bunch of teams at 5-2. If the playoffs started today, always fun. First off, I'd be very upset. Only 7 weeks of football. But if they started today, the Cincinnati Bengals at 5-2 would get the tiebreaker.
Nice.
And be getting that first round bye. So I think on one hand, you might be looking at this from a Chiefs standpoint and say, well, it's the Bengals and Raiders. And I know the Titans just, thrashed you, but it's the Titans. All these other, the Ravens are up top. They're all 5-2. Those teams can still lose a bunch of games. But I think just the Chiefs need to be concerned internally about what's happening with that team. Here's what we were just talking off air, right? I mean, it's just so rare to see the Chiefs lose like this in the Mahomes era, because there have been games where Mahomes hasn't played great, but they still found a way to score 30 because that offense, we talk about the play calling and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce able to, save the day. The defense has been at least average these last couple of years, which has helped a lot. That's how they went on their Super Bowl run, both years, really. Now just they can't stop anybody, even though they kind of, settled down a little bit as the game went on. But didn't it just not feel like the Chiefs were going to come back today? Every other Chiefs game when they're down, it's like, oh, they're down 24-0. They got them right where they want them, like the playoff game against the Texans, even though that happened a lot earlier. Just feels different, right? Offensively, this Chiefs offense this year too.
They just cannot stop turning the ball over. Like it's getting ridiculous at this point. You're right. Like even before, whenever the Chiefs were in a big hole, and to be clear, they've never been in as big a hole as they were
Not
today.
Like this, yeah.
27 points down. It's the largest deficit that Patrick Mahomes has ever faced in the NFL, including that Texans game. So, they've never had a game like this. But even when they are down or they put in a big hole, you have total confidence that offense will roll, it will put up a ton of points, and it will get them back in the game. But that was before you were budgeting for a couple of turnovers that were inevitable and going to happen every single game. Like this is almost like the 2018 version of the Chiefs, where they had no kind of defense whatsoever, and it was a ridiculous shootout every single week because the offense was going to score every time they had the ball. The defense was going to allow a score every time they had the ball. And it was just a case of who had the ball the last or who made the fewest mistakes. But that offense was not turning the ball over at an insane level. This team is like that 2018 team, except with the added turnovers. They have like a huge volume of extra turnovers than any other team in the NFL. They're leading the league in turnovers on offense. And as much as their offense is still very effective outside of today, it's still moving the ball well, it's still scoring, it's still putting up a ton of yards and points. You just cannot overcome that volume of turnovers.
Yeah, the question I posed on the PFF NFL podcast coming into this game too is about Patrick Mahomes, right? He has not graded well this year. Prior to last week, not today, or not Sunday's game, prior to last week, the stats were fine. And I think it was a product of, hey, the offense overall has been pretty good. They've had the turnover luck, though, the bad luck. But now you have Mahomes definitely seeming like he's pressing a little bit. You don't have him to bail you out. And again, that's what made the Chiefs great, right? If the defense let them down, Mahomes or the offense would bail them out. Or if Mahomes wasn't having his best game, the rest of the offense would bail him out. Something's off here offensively. Mahomes also gets away with a fumble yesterday, and he is, he's just not among the league leaders in positively graded throws for the first time in his career. The offense that it runs through Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill just isn't as scary anymore. I don't want to completely overreact because they've been an extremely productive offense, but clearly when you take that down a tick and they're not dominant, it's a bigger issue, and we started to see that a little bit today. We'll get into more of the Chiefs in a minute, but another great deal from DraftKings Sportsbook this week, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. They got you covered because every new customer that bets $5 on any NFL game, any NFL team to win their game, and if they do, you win $200 in free bets. That's all you got to do. You bet $5 on any NFL team, you can win $200 as long as they win. It's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't yet available in your state, DraftKings won't leave you empty-handed. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests. DraftKings has given all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF. Bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game and win $200 in free bets. If they win, you win with promo code PFF this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit, $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, I want to talk about their schedule. And do you have anything else to add as far as where they're at right now, the Chiefs? Because I want to talk schedule in a minute here too.
Just that, yeah. Look, the game against Tennessee was ugly. Like, that offense didn't get anything going. It didn't function. It didn't look like it was going to come back, and ultimately they didn't score very many points at all. But despite that game, the Chiefs are still a top 5 offense in pretty much any category you want to look at. They're top 5 in EPA per play. That's an EPA is a expected points added as a statistic that gets hammered by turnovers, particularly ones that are in opposing territory, like all the Chiefs turnovers have typically been. So right. Despite that, they're still top 5 in EPA per play. They only dropped off the top in terms of touchdown drive rate because of that game yesterday. Now they're behind Tampa Bay. They're number 1 in successful play percentage. This has still been one of the best offenses in the NFL this season. The turnovers are crippling, though, and they need to figure out a way of stopping that, because it's typically not something that lasts for any team, offense or defense, over a period of time. But the Chiefs just cannot kick that habit of turning the ball over.
One other thing I want to add here, too, because look, we've seen other teams have bad losses and win the Super Bowl. I mean, we're 1 year removed from the Bucs sitting there at 7-5, lost to the Chiefs. Tony Romo, I don't even know if he was serious. Said, "Oh, we'll see these teams in the Super Bowl." Like, what, Tony? The Bucs were 7-5. They go to the Super Bowl, right? The Bucs lost to the Saints last year by 1 million on Sunday Night Football, right? We've seen teams bounce back, but the Chiefs have won 3 games this year. It's against the Browns, which if the Browns don't fumble it away in the second quarter, we might be talking about a 2-5 Chiefs team right now. So they beat the Browns by 4 in week 1. They beat the Eagles 42-30, and they beat the Washington football team. Those are their 3 wins. Every time they played a good team, the Ravens, the Chargers, the Bills, or the Titans, all AFC teams, they've lost. So, they beat the Browns. Okay, so they got 1 win against, say, a good team at the moment. That's a little concerning, right? It's this whole trend. It's not like the Chiefs have played 4 good games out of 7, had a little bit of bad luck. I mean, this has become a little bit more of a trend where the defense just isn't good enough. The offense's margin of error is bigger, and they're not. Look, it's like a whole bunch of turnover luck just, turning over on them right now here in Mahomes' 4th year as a starter.
Yeah, their schedule is tough. I will say that their best path to the playoffs now might be still to win the division, because they're now 2 games back from the Raiders. They're 1 game back from the Chargers, and they can make up all those games just from the games against the Raiders and the Chargers. They haven't played the Raiders yet, so they have the 2 games that they're behind still to come. If they beat the Raiders twice, they jump them in terms of tiebreakers, and they have the game against the Chargers to come, so they can get that game back against the Chargers. The only problem is then you need to beat the other good teams on your schedule just to stay level or ahead with those teams. But like that might be their best path because that's probably an easier thing to achieve to get just enough wins and to jump those other teams than it is to potentially win 7 out of the next 10 and make the wild card spot with a 10 or 11 win record.
Yeah, you get the Giants next week, so you get your third weaker team in the NFC East, but they still have the Packers in 2 weeks. You mentioned the 2 Raiders games, still have the Cowboys. You mentioned the Chargers, and you get the Bengals later in the season too. So again, it's if you're saying, hey, you got to go 7-3, but you want to go through the division, it's tightening up just a little bit on the Chiefs. Am I ready to give up on them yet? Still no. You? How serious is this for the Chiefs?
I mean, I'm not writing them off, but for the first time this season, I do think they're in serious trouble.
I thought it was crazy to write them off a week ago. I'm closer to writing them off this week. It is a lot more concerning in Kansas City. It's a PFF NFL Daily.